To the average Joe, buying a car is buying a depreciating asset. You spend money on the car, and over time, the value of that car goes down. And while this is absolutely true for the average vehicle, for a specific segment of cars, believe it or not, they're actually viewed as investments. And they've been investments that have provided a pretty good return over the years. According to Hagerty Blue Chip Index, classic cars have outpaced the S&P 500 for 17 of the last 18 years, with 2024 being the first time that the classic car fell short of this feat, with Hagerty Blue Chip Index consisting of a variety of cars like the 1971 Lamborghini Miura SV to a 1963 Shelby GT350, and in the last year, these cars have seen some dramatic declines, anywhere from -4% to -13%. But don't worry, most of you watching this channel won't be too affected by the Blue Chip Index declining because of the fact that prices of vehicles in this index range anywhere from about a couple $100,000 to over 14 million. But what I do think that the classic car market indexes shows us is a broader trend that we are beginning to see, not only with classic cars, but I also think that we will start to see it with exotic and supercars as well, because it's not only the Hagerty Blue Chip Index that's seeing a decline. According to some of the most recent data, Hagerty Market Index is also on the decline, and Hagerty Price Guide indexes are also down, with the Blue Chip Index, which we talked about earlier, down 3%, British cars and Ferrari down 1%, American Muscle down a whopping 8%, and 1950s American Classics decreased by 5%, while affordable classics decreased by 1%. The only segment that saw a price increase over the last 12 months was post-war German collectible cars. And the last 12 months aside, long-term with all of these segments, you're seeing some significant flattening, especially when compared to the historical growth. On the flip side, though, we have the trend of the modern supercar, exotic car, and high-end luxury car, which as of late has been exploding. The supercar market has seen growth over the last 12 months. And earlier this year, it was reported that the six-figure vehicles, so vehicles costing over $100,000, has seen a 333% sales increase since 2020, with automakers selling 52,000 cars priced at above $100,000 for the first 2 months of 2025, which was a 13% increase since 2024. And oddly enough, Range Rover tops the list of some of the most popular 100K buys. And while Range Rover is far from exotic, I do think that this trend we're seeing across the car market is indicative of a broader problem with the exotic and collectible market. And dare I say it, but I do think that this could lead to a potential crash. As I mentioned just a moment ago, we are already seeing the collectible car market begin to correct itself after a multi-year boom. And I don't think I'm alone in saying this, but over the last couple of years, the exotic supercar and ultra high-end luxury car market has been out of hand. Not only has the cost of exotics just skyrocketed, but the supply of them has as well. As I mentioned a moment ago, the number of six-figure vehicles sold since 2020 has increased by 333%. And while sure, a Range Rover is far from an exotic or supercar, the sales and production numbers for these exotic and supercars have increased dramatically over the years. The Lamborghini Murcielago had 4,099 units produced over the course of its 9-year production run. Once the Murcielago was retired, it was replaced with the Aventador, which was produced for 10 years and had a total of 11,465 units produced. That is more than a 179% increase in production for the V12 flagship Lamborghini model. The Gallardo, Lamborghini's first real mass production exotic, and what was at the time considered to be the first entry-level supercar, 14,022 units of them were produced throughout its production run. The Gallardo was then replaced by the Huracan, which ran for about a decade, and over the course of that decade-long run, 22,000 units were produced. Between the Huracan and the Gallardo, there were more than 50% more units produced over their respective runs. And don't even get me started on the Urus, which is Lamborghini's first modern SUV, which has produced over 20,000 units since its launch in 2018. And while the Urus is considered a more affordable Lamborghini, it still has a steep price tag of over $260,000 for the base model. But this isn't just a trend that we're seeing with Lamborghinis. The Ferrari 360 was produced from 1999 to 2005, and during this period of time, about 17,000 units were produced across a variety of submodels and trims. Ferrari F430, which ran for about 5 years and produced about the same number of units. But in 2009, the F430 was replaced by the 458, where 24,500 units were produced, about a 45% increase from previous generations. And while some of these numbers are just speculation because Ferrari tends to be a bit tight-lipped when it comes to their model production numbers, according to Ferrari's own press release, they produced 13,752 units last year, which was a 1% increase year over year. The first generation Audi R8 produced about 24,000 units, while the second generation, which ended in 2024, produced about 45,000 units. And while the sheer production numbers and volume of exotic vehicles that you have at your disposal has absolutely increased over the last 10 years, the selection of vehicles that we have available to us in these high-end price points has also increased as well. We, of course, have exotic cars and supercars, which we just talked about. But we also have ultra-luxury vehicles, which is a segment of vehicle that I believe is quickly becoming oversaturated. For example, the G-Wagon. Now, I am not necessarily saying the G-Wagon is oversaturated, but I think it's a good example because it is such a tried and true model. The G-Wagon is a staple in luxury, but it's also sort of confusing car to get data on because they've had the same generation for like 20 years and only recently updated it. However, annual sales for the G-Wagon have just exploded from seeing 3,051 units sold in 2014 to over 10,000 units sold in 2024. But we also have more normal cars that have also begun to see an incredibly high price point. We have normal everyday luxury SUVs like Tahoe, Suburban, Lincolns, Cadillacs, but we also have these cars that absolutely could be classified as a borderline supercar, and yet they're produced by these everyday brands, but they have an incredibly high price tag. For example, the Mustang GTD, which has a starting price of $327,960, it feels as though the price tag of these exotic luxury cars is sort of becoming watered down. And if you're anything like me, then as you're driving around the city, you probably notice this in real life. I know that I've talked about this on my channel before because it's something that I think about frequently. I remember whenever I was younger, a teenager, and even into my early 20s, I would see something like a Lamborghini on the road and it would be a special occurrence. Today, seeing Lamborghinis on the road is a much more frequent occurrence than it used to be, but seeing cars that are priced at above $100,000 or even $150,000, $200,000 is even more common. And it makes me wonder how the heck these people are able to afford these expensive cars. Are people just making that much money, or are people just spreading themselves thin for the sake of getting an expensive vehicle? To be honest, I don't really know. But to me, all of this data, including the fact that collectible cars are seeing a decline in value, possibly providing some writing on the wall of what's to come with other segments of niche cars, the fact that exotic and supercars are getting produced in higher volumes than ever, and the fact that the price tag for these vehicles is larger than life. To me, this is super indicative that the exotic, supercar, and even ultra high-end luxury vehicles are in a bubble. The market is far too oversaturated, far too expensive, and like the collector car market, I believe that it's going to see declines. However, the collector car market has something that modern-day exotic and supercar markets don't have, and that is scarcity. Collector cars are finite. We can't reproduce those once they're gone. So there is an intrinsic value that comes along with that. However, that same thing cannot be said with modern-day supercars, and the fact that these cars are being produced in massive quantities, at least compared to how they've been produced in the past, means that the collector aspect of these vehicles moving forward is sort of iffy at best. And truthfully, in my opinion, it's not a matter of if we see the exotic car market bubble burst, it's a matter of when. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below, and while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.